By the winter of 1943, the fate of the world hung in the balance. The Second World War had entered its most desperate phase. Across Europe, cities lay in ruins. On the Eastern Front, millions of men were locked in a bloody stalemate that stretched from the Baltic to the Black Sea. In the West, Allied bombers reduced German industry to rubble night after night. But the end was nowhere in sight. Inside Hitler's headquarters, the Wolf's Lair in East Prussia, the Führer raged. The invasion of Italy had pushed Axis forces back toward the Alps. The Eastern Front was bleeding, and rumors spread that the leaders of the Allied powers, Joseph Stalin, Winston Churchill, and Franklin D. Roosevelt, would soon meet face-to-face to plan a final blow against Germany. For Hitler, that meeting represented more than diplomacy. It was a threat to his survival. Three nations, Britain, America, and the Soviet Union, each with vast armies and resources standing united under a single strategy. If he could destroy that unity, if he could kill the big three in one stroke, perhaps Germany could still win. And so, a new operation was born inside the shadowy offices of the Reich Main Security Office in Berlin. Its codename Unternehmen Weitsprung. Operation Long Jump. The plan began with intelligence. For months, German Abwehr agents and diplomatic sources had tracked whispers of a high-level Allied conference somewhere in the Middle East. By late October 1943, reports confirmed that Tehran, the capital of Iran, then a neutral country under joint British and Soviet occupation, had been chosen. Iran was a nest of spies. British MI6, American OSS, Soviet NKVD and German Abwehr all operated there, bribing local tribes, merchants and officials. The Germans already had an advantage. The German embassy in Tehran was still functioning under diplomatic protection. Beneath its elegant Persian architecture lay a network of tunnels and safe houses stretching across the city. Within those corridors, the Nazis began to plan their most audacious mission. Hitler summoned Otto Skorzeny, the man he trusted most for impossible tasks. Tall, confident and charismatic, Skorzeny had become a national hero just weeks earlier for rescuing Benito Mussolini from captivity. In the Italian Alps, Hitler called him the most dangerous man in Europe. In Skorzeny's private notes, later seized by Allied intelligence, he recounted a meeting with Himmler and Ribbentrop in which the Führer allegedly said, "If we decapitate the enemy, we cut off the snake's head. You will do this for Germany." The operation would unfold in three phases. First, advance agents would parachute into Iran to set up radio stations, gather intelligence and secure safe routes. Second, a larger team dressed as British and American soldiers would infiltrate Tehran using forged papers provided by the German embassy. Finally, once the conference began, the kill team would strike, attacking the embassy compound where the leaders met and escaping under cover of explosions and chaos. If successful, Operation Long Jump would kill Roosevelt, Churchill and Stalin within minutes. The world would change overnight, but the Nazis weren't the only ones operating in the shadows. Deep within the NKVD, the Soviet secret police, a network of spies monitored every whisper in Tehran. Soviet intelligence had spent years embedding agents in the Middle East, especially after Germany's invasion of the USSR in 1941. By 1943, they had hundreds of informants, Iranian traders, translators, and local officials loyal to Moscow. Among them was a woman known only by her cover name Vera. According to declassified files, she worked as a typist at a German-owned firm in Tehran and secretly reported to the Soviets. In late October, she intercepted a telegram between Berlin and the German embassy, referring to a visit of great importance, involving the leaders of our enemies. Her message reached Moscow within hours. Soon after, 2 German couriers were captured near Hamadan by Soviet agents. Hidden in their luggage were cipher pads and a note describing a mission called The Long Leap Toward 3 Targets. Stalin was alerted immediately. He was furious and terrified. Stalin called his head of counterintelligence in Tehran, Nikolai Kuznetsov. "If they try to touch Roosevelt or Churchill," he said, "there will be no Tehran left standing." Within days, the Soviets deployed hundreds of agents across the city. Streets were sealed, radio frequencies monitored, and local guides arrested for questioning. Even the bazaar merchants were ordered to report suspicious foreigners. Meanwhile, in Berlin, Skorzeny and his superiors prepared their teams. 6 agents would parachute into Iran first, an advance unit tasked with securing safe houses and radio contact. They were to be followed by a second wave of commandos, dressed in Allied uniforms and speaking English with heavy accents. On the night of November 18, 1943, a Luftwaffe transport plane flew low over the mountains of northern Iran. Parachutes opened against the moonlight. The men landed quietly and buried their gear in the sand. One of them was immediately betrayed by locals and captured by Soviet patrols. The others vanished. Under interrogation, the captured agent mentioned the name Skorzeny. He claimed a major assassination team would arrive in Tehran within days to complete the longest jump of the war. When the news reached Stalin, he decided to act preemptively. He ordered that Roosevelt be kept entirely within the Soviet embassy grounds for his own safety. The Americans objected at first. Why should the U.S. president be a guest of the Soviets? But Stalin was insistent. He assured them that a secure underground tunnel connected the Soviet and British embassies. Roosevelt could move freely between buildings without exposure to the streets. The Americans reluctantly agreed. Churchill stayed in a nearby villa under British guard. For the next few days, Tehran became a city on edge. NKVD officers in plain clothes filled cafes and markets. Iranian police closed roads without warning. Allied convoys changed routes daily to avoid ambush. Roosevelt's Secret Service agents noticed that Soviet soldiers had snipers posted on rooftops and machine guns hidden behind sandbags in the embassy gardens. It was clear something more than simple precaution was taking place. On November 28, 1943, the Tehran Conference began. The Big Three met for the first time in person. Inside the Soviet embassy's lavish reception hall, Roosevelt sat in his wheelchair beside Stalin, while Churchill paced the room with his cigar. They discussed the opening of a second front in France, the division of Germany after the war, and how to draw neutral Turkey into the Allied camp. But outside, the streets of Tehran were a different world. Soviet agents intercepted strange radio signals coming from the northern suburbs. Morse code short bursts, then silence. An NKVD team traced the signals to a house on the outskirts of the city. When they broke in, they found weapons, forged Allied passports, and maps of the embassy district. Hours later, Soviet guards clashed with armed men near a railway line. Gunfire erupted. When the smoke cleared, several bodies lay on the ground. Men in civilian clothing, each carrying German pistols and cyanide capsules. According to Soviet reports, these were members of the advance team of Operation Long Jump. The rest of the commandos never arrived. Some believe they were captured before reaching Tehran. Others think the entire plot was an NKVD fabrication, an exaggeration to justify Stalin's tight security. Historians still debate what really happened. Soviet files remain partly classified, but British and American documents do confirm unusual intercepts and heightened tension during the conference. Even the U.S. Secret Service reported credible threats from Axis agents within Tehran. When the conference ended on December 1st, the Allied leaders departed safely. Stalin personally informed Roosevelt that the NKVD had foiled a German plot to kill them all. Roosevelt thanked him and smiled wryly. "Marshal Stalin," he said, "you seem to have friends everywhere." After the war, Soviet propaganda celebrated the story of Operation Long Jump as proof of their superior intelligence. Posters and films depicted Stalin as the guardian of the Allied leaders, and Otto Skorzeny as a villain defeated by Soviet vigilance. but Western historians found few documents to confirm a fully developed assassination plot. Skorzeny himself denied involvement. Captured German records mention talk of disrupting enemy leadership at Tehran, but no orders to kill specific targets. Still, many believe the plan was real. The Germans had both the means and the motivation, and Iran at that time was a perfect breeding ground for espionage. Tens of thousands of Axis sympathizers and German engineers remained in the country since before the war. Even if Operation Long Jump never reached execution, the fear it generated was enough to shape the conference. Stalin and Roosevelt grew closer, both distrustful of British intelligence. That relationship would set the tone for post-war politics and the coming Cold War. In Berlin, as news of the failed operation reached the Reich Chancellery, Hitler reportedly exploded in rage. Skorzeny was reassigned to other missions, most notably the Battle of the Bulge in 1944, where he commanded English-speaking Germans in American uniforms. Decades later, declassified documents would paint a complex picture, some evidence of German activity in Tehran, some Soviet exaggeration, and a great deal of myth-making. Perhaps Operation Long Jump was both, a real plan that never fully materialized, and a propaganda weapon that outlived the war itself. But one thing is certain: in Tehran, for those few days in 1943, the world teetered on the edge. A handful of men in the shadows could have changed the future. 3 leaders, each suspicious of the other, walked through gardens lined with snipers, unaware that assassins might already be waiting for them beyond the walls. The guns never fired. History continued, but the legend of Operation Long Jump remains, a reminder that in the greatest war of all time, the most dangerous battles were sometimes fought in silence. You've been watching WW2 War Files. Subscribe and open the next classified file from history's deadliest war.